down here to Winona from the Twin Cities, and I know people say this, and I mean this as literally as possible. I'm absolutely delighted to be here, both at St. Mary's and here with as part of this roundtable. We have looking at the list of guests that we have, I think, I don't know if we could have drawn this up any better in terms of the representation that we have. We have three folks coming to us from the world of banking. We have two people coming from the industry, in the manufacturing industry as well as the service industry, and we have a person from the flat-out, straight-out financial planning and managing profession. So a really, really nice mix here, I think, to get a nice different angles of perspectives. And what we hope to talk about is integrating technology and business intelligence in order to create successful careers in the evolving financial landscape. Successful careers for new people, new graduates entering these professions for the first time, or for anyone out there that is just looking to make a change. Hopefully you'll be able to glean some useful information that can be helpful to you in either getting into this profession or getting along once you're in. I'll go ahead and introduce all of our participants first. First we have Dixon Irwin. Dixon is a data specialist at Red Wing Credit Union, one of our three bankers here tonight. We have Sean Butcher, who comes to us from over across the river in Wisconsin. He's Director of Sales and Operations Planning for Ashley, a very well-regarded brand in the furniture industry. We have John Heim, who's a generative AI execution, data science and technology at IBM. And speaking of highly regarded brands, excuse me. And then along with John, we have Kirsten Heim, who comes to us from the professional financial management profession. She is a certified financial planner with North Star Financial Partners in Rochester. Is that right, Kirsten? Is that? Yes, in Rochester. And then lastly, we have two folks from Merchant Bank, of an esteemed regional bank here in this part of the woods. We have Stephen Swenson, who's the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Merchant Banks. That's a pretty weighty title. And then we have Steve Molander, Molander, sorry.
That worked. Yep.
Okay, all right. Who will soon be taking over in Stephen's position in the coming months. And he comes to this position with 20 years in banking and 10 years in banking industry consulting. So again, thank you all. I can't tell you how important your input is to our students and to any young professionals. It's very kind of you to be here, and it's very important to them. And so I'm very grateful for all of your presence here today, and I thank you as well. So if you don't mind, I would just like to go through some of these questions to kind of help our students and young professionals maybe get some insight into the profession, and particularly into the rapidly evolving profession. And so what I would like to ask each of you individually is one, what inspired you to get into the world of fintech, financial technology, and business intelligence? And since we're going to talk about business intelligence, I thought it would be useful for me to ask from each of you what that term means to you exactly, because it strikes me as a term that's kind of perhaps a nebulous term, and um, and I don't know if there is a more if there's a more specific um, criteria for something to be classified as business intelligence versus, say, like the old school terms of my day, data analytics and that kind of thing. Are those the same thing? Are they different? And how do they differ? If you could just speak to, with your thoughts on that and the term itself, if you want to. You don't have to, but I would like to ask each of you what inspired you to get into this field in the first place. And we'll just go in the order in which I introduced you, because that is the order in which I received your names, and it keeps things simple. So, Dixon, if you wouldn't mind taking that on
Yeah,
first.
sure. Yeah. When you asked that, the first thing that came to my head was data-driven decisions. So, um, put simply, a lot of the things we're trying to do, decision-wise, is have the data to back it. Um, Along with that, that kind of backtracking, that's kind of what drew me to the field, was something unique about St. Mary's having a dedicated business intelligence and analytics degree. Um, was something that interests me, and the power that data can have in a business overall. And so exploring more of that, and then funny enough, I had an internship with the credit union the summer after my junior year, and enjoyed it, and so decided to look more of the financial route and kind of gain some more expertise in that. And so now that's where I've been the last 5 years, and so it's been great. Finance and analytics go hand in hand, and so data-driven decisions are key, and I think that helps me in my work every day.
Okay, that sounds good. Sean?
Yeah, so I think overall what got me into the industry was I've just always been a nerd and then kind of found my way falling onto the finance side naturally. Everybody talks money, so use the analytical side of my head to kind of find my way into the financial side. But from a business intelligence standpoint, my true definition is taking the data and facts, and yes, they are different, taking the data and facts and establishing what the information is actually telling you, drawing the narrative around it, making a strategic decision based off of that. To me, that's always been the most important aspect of business intelligence. So, what's drawn me to the industry across the board is not only um, the fast pace, but I think it's always ever growing and gives a nice little side twist to you every once in a while. I think companies make a lot of, to put it nicely, a lot of pretty dumb decisions just off of a whim, because that's how things always have been done. And usually there's a better way.
All right, good. Thank you, Sean. John Heim?
Yeah, hi. I think I'm the exact opposite of Sean coming into the field. I think I was more finance and fell into the more business intelligence, type of role. Just growing up kind of in an entrepreneurial household, it's just, been finance. You just tend to understand it. And then there was some family guidance to look very closely into the, business intelligence program at St. Mary's, just because that's the way the world was going, 10 years ago, and that's still the way the world is going today. So it was obviously good advice. So, I mean, that's really how I found the program. That's how I found, kind of got started with it. And to me, I mean, business intelligence is exactly, I mean, it's everything at this point, right? It can be data and analytics. It can be, I mean, it can be just anything, right? It can be AI. There's just a list and host of things. I think business intelligence does a good job of staying high level, right? It's supposed to be, from a 10,000 foot view, that's what it is, right? That's what it all is. There's just a lot of different pillars that come from it. So,
Okay. It sounds like what you all, I mean, if I hear kind of a common denominator with respect to the way that BI is described or thought of, is that it takes data, I guess, one step further from being data to being information, I suppose, and once you can, and if you could take that information even a step further, you have knowledge, right? And so, if what I'm understanding, you guys, is from you folks, is accurate, it seems to me like intelligence is one step further along with respect to our ability to use data in meaningful and helpful ways. But yeah, I think I've heard that kind of in all three of your answers so far. So thanks for that. Kirsten, how about you?
Yeah. So I'm similar to John, where I came from more of the finance background. I was a finance and management major, so didn't necessarily dabble too much in the business intelligence side of things from an education standpoint. But I can say just with our industry in general, I mean, kind of the backbone of what we're doing is analyzing more client data and more, personal finance and analyzing where they're at from, spending habits or trends that they see from that standpoint. And then obviously the biggest one too is, analyzing different investments, as there's a lot of data and different formulas and outlooks that you can see with investments. So, I mean, it's kind of the backbone where we start our decision making to help clients, and then obviously it's dependent on their goals and what they're doing, but it's definitely a big item on where the industry is going, because I work with a lot of people that have been in the industry for like 40 plus years, and getting them up to date on a lot of different software and financial planning things too has been that's where we're just seeing the industry go to. So
that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that the analytics. I never thought of using it on the clients themselves, on their own, personal habits, or maybe their tendencies or way of viewing things as a means of improving financial planning. But that certainly makes a lot of sense, and that's very interesting. Mr. Swenson.
Yeah, hi. I guess I would fit the fintech idea in the sense that I came from the finance side, have a CPA, and then went on to get a master's of computer science, so the tech side of that. So both on the financial side, I did 15 years of consulting also, and a lot of that was you had to use data to help your clients make decisions. That was a critical part of being a consultant, to help them understand where they were at, where they were going, and using data to do that. So very heavy emphasis on that. And then, within the bank, as I became the CEO here, we've really built up a much stronger data analytics, and we call it BI because it's nothing if you're not using it to achieve business outcomes, right? So I kind of tend to prefer the term BI, and I think it's just really exciting what's going on in this field, right?
Yeah.
With all of the AI and everything else that's coming up. So that's my background.
Yeah. Okay. I was just talking with one of my classes today. I think anyone looking to get into this profession in through whatever avenue, and you guys represent several potential ways. But I was kind of talking with my students about how the day they graduate and get into this business is really the day that their learning begins, and it doesn't ever stop, and I think it's only going to get more and more that way as we get further and further into the future. And so each generation, I think, is going to have to be more accustomed to continual lifetime learning than the generation that preceded it, because it's a snowball, isn't it? It's a multiplicative phenomenon.
It's almost hard to imagine what it's going to look like 10 years from now, right? For
It is,
something like
isn't it? Yes. Yeah, I have a daughter who's just graduating, and I think when I think about AI and BI and things, I just can't imagine what the world will be like when she's old. When she's like me. Just how different everything is going to be. But it's certainly exciting times. Well, thank you for that, Steve Molander.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a little different spin on this, and you're talking about generational. So if you look at where BI's come from, in the past, we used to write reports. Everybody here is lived the world where I generate a report. Problem with reports is always the backwards looking view of your business. It's what happened yesterday, last month, whatever. What's really exciting about business intelligence is not only is this a forward thinking, trending view of your business, but you are now starting to look at the details that come within the data that in the past you just looked at a very macro level. And what business intelligence allows you to do is to take that down to a micro level, look at the behaviors, look at the patterns, look at the things that are normal, and then it allows you to identify those which are opportunities, those activities which are possibly threats, and allows you to really, and we've said it before, make data-driven decisions that, I'll be honest with you, outside of Stephen and consulting, 5 years ago, we weren't talking about data-driven decisions. Now it's a common term at our management meetings. What do we know? How deep do we know it? And what does it mean to us in the decisions we make going forward? So the excitement about BI is really, you talked about learning every day. You've got the opportunity now in the world of business intelligence to take minutia that in the past was just hidden and overlooked and use that to help drive your business.
That's interesting, because when I hear AI or BI, and I think of large tech, it seems like megadata goes right hand in hand with those terms. And so when you think of megadata, you think of ever larger, population sizes and things like that. But the idea of actually drilling down deeper and more acutely into an existing, set of rules is something I hadn't really thought about, and it's a new way of thinking about it for me anyway, and it kind of opens up a lot of possibilities, at least in my mind, as to what this stuff can bring on for us. Thank you for that, guys. I appreciate that insight from you all. I'd like to go around again now with kind of a more pragmatic type question for our students out there, and that is, if I could ask, based on what you see out there in the world every day, what would you deem to be the most in demand, most important skills for integrating technology and business intelligence into finance? Like, what are the tools that graduating students and young professionals will find to be the most helpful, at least based on the experiences that you all have had? And so if we could go back around to Dixon again on this one. Dixon, I'm sorry, you get the least time to mull over these questions as I introduce them. Maybe we should reverse order sometimes or something, but sorry about that.
No, that's all right. Some of the most important things that I've seen in myself getting into the industry is just being that translator, that storytelling we talk about at St. Mary's, being the translator between the people who speak data and the people who don't. I think getting the correct message across in the right way that everyone can understand and be on board with is vastly important. And the second thing I kind of thought of was the ability to adapt. I think we all mentioned in some way of how fast this world changes in terms of what becomes available, especially now that AI is coming to the forefront of pretty much everything, is just that ability to adapt and not get stuck and complacent in the way things have been done. Um, Use that skill set to vet and understand the new things coming onto the scene, and just be a sponge as well.
Okay. Excellent. Translator. That's interesting. That's something that was talked about in the program here at St. Mary's when you were here. Is that what?
We talked a lot about storytelling. The translator portion of it came from I think a peer-to-peer session I was on a couple months ago, and just putting it in that term of a translator kind of resonated with the curriculum we were going through at St. Mary's, and just being that bridge between the technical and kind of the managerial staff who may not be as technical but need the information nonetheless.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. Real good. Real good. Sean Butcher.
Yeah, Dixon, you definitely brought up a very good point with the translator. That was on the top of my list as well. But the other ones, I think I got a couple more. The first one would be modeling. I think it is a very something you're going to have to learn very quickly and adapt to Dixon's point. You have to be able to adapt in this aspect, but the modeling of figuring out why a decision is good or bad can very much so change based off your assumptions. So pulling your business strategy mind together, all the while knowing how to actually implement the model effectively, is crucial. It's something I see time and time again, almost as a fail point. But you need a solid modeling skill in order to get through your typical day to day. The other one, and as rudimentary as it may sound, you need to be able to sniff out BS, right? At the end of the day, anyone's going to be able to say numbers. Any math is going to calculate to whatever the heck it needs to be. You're using the wrong input. Nobody catches it. It can be a big dollar figure worth of mistake. So being able to do that quick math in your head as a sanity check, what I call it, back of the napkin math, whatever you want to call it, is crucial. And those are some skills that I think I've been lucky enough to be able to learn very, very quickly in the industry.
Okay. Well, would you mind explaining just for some of us, like say me, or describe what you mean by modeling? Is that like running through a scenario like a bank might with a stress test, that kind of thing, or you say what if this happens and this happens? What are the likely outcomes of that? Is that what you're referring to?
Actually, no. Overall idea, it's very similar. I'm more so thinking from the let's call it, my world's mostly transportation and DC. So obviously when 2020 happened, supply chain was a big issue. That's where I spent most of my time. What happens in if you pull this lever or this lever, and what does that do to your financial statements? That's most of the world that I live into. So from a modeling perspective, and whether a decision is good or bad becomes very important. Even as an organization, sometimes you make a bad decision. It's a matter of making the best of the bad decisions and knowing that's important.
Okay. Okay. Real good. Thank you. Thank you, Sean. John.
Yeah, I don't want to just echo the same points, but I think another way of putting this is model explainability, right? So Dixon talked about being a translator, and we're talking about modeling, whatever kind of model you really want to bring up. But I think the most important piece is being able to explain the output from that model, right? So uh, just not to go down a rabbit hole of and echo what everyone had said, but I think that's just another word you can put to it, is just explainability, right? Are you able to explain the output that you have, right? Because I mean, a lot of people, this goes to the next point that I thought about when I heard this question, is just like emotional intelligence, right? How are you managing your emotions, maybe your team's emotions, your stakeholders' emotions, the client's emotions, right? A lot of very technically driven people can get very frustrated very quickly if someone doesn't understand them because they don't know how to maybe describe what they truly mean. So it's important, right, to be able to be that translator, to have manage all the different emotions of the parties involved, right? So everyone can have a successful outcome for one, but everyone can also talk to each other for on the next one.
Okay, that's funny. I never imagined, in this discussion about data and analytics and very, hard, cold type things. I didn't imagine that we would hear about emotional intelligence and emotions tonight, and that's very telling. I mean, it's very insightful. Thank you for that, Kirsten.
Yeah, so kind of, not to echo again what everybody is kind of saying too with the explainability part, the translator. I mean, that's kind of the key of what we do, especially when we're going through a financial plan and, bringing emotions into it. You're working with people on their personal finances. So being able, if you're just going to come out and just blab a bunch of data at them and not being able to tie it to their personal side of things, being able to, what do you want to start with? What do you want to end with? So it definitely ties in a lot of an emotional part of it too, just since we were talking about that as well. But then the other point I was thinking of too is being able to understand what the client or whoever it is really trying to accomplish. Because sometimes maybe they don't truly understand what their deep down goal is or what they're, is hindering them from reaching their goals, or they don't want to tell you either. So being able to ask a lot of good questions to get to kind of the root goal and then tying that goals, I think, key.
Thank you, Kirsten. This may be frustrating for you guys, to have 6 people answer the same question, and especially if you're not like Dixon and have to go first, all the time. You might say, well, I don't mean to say what everyone else is saying, but when that happens, I think that's very useful for our students that are watching, because there seems to be, for instance, a very clear response to this question, and around about the translate, to be able to translate the data, being key, the emotional intelligence. So it's good. It's good to hear. I think sometimes for our students to hear the same answer, over and over again, because it lets them know just exactly how ubiquitous and pervasive those needs are in the world, of business intelligence. And Stephen Swenson, please.
Yeah, I guess one thing as a student, I guess I would ask myself, do I want to come at this from the technical side? Or the business side. So, typically what I see is we pair up a storyteller, that liaison with the business, with somebody who's more, I'm going to call a data engineer, and knows how to take the data from the sources, ingest that data, take unstructured data, turn it into structured data. And I kind of see, at least in my world, those being 2 kind of separate roles. I come from the storytelling side. I come from the business and then work back with the technical people to be able to grab that data and tell a story. But you may want to ask yourself as a student, I mean, am I more interested in that really the more techie side of working with that data and that, whatever you want to call it, a blob, a lake, and how we're going to structure that and how it's going to be defined, all the fields and all that kind of stuff, right? Or am I more interested in how the story is being told? So I would say ask yourself that, and then position yourself, accordingly, depending on where you think your interests are.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you for that. And other Steve Molander.
So Mr. Swenson pretty much mirrored what I was going to say. I'll take it from the storytelling side. What you really need to be really good at the storytelling side, you got to be inquisitive. You have to know your domain well enough to understand that what's the structure of the data or what's the type of data that you're getting out. And you have to want to go deeper and deeper, because one of the things very different with BI compared to traditional business analytics or just reporting is that you really do have an open plate of information coming at you. And the question is going to be, what are you going to pull out of it? And I think Sean said it. How do you validate that what you pulled out is accurate and truthful? So I go back to, you want to be someone who understands the business strategy, understands the intent of what the business is trying to do, but be that inquisible fact finder that is able to go out and grab pieces to tell a different story than you told the day before.
That's fantastic. Thank you. But I think our students are getting some wonderful information. Thank you guys so much for this. This is invaluable. If I could then, I had talked a little bit earlier about how, the day you graduate and enter into your profession is really the day you actually start to learn, or you really, you really start learning. And so now that you guys have some years of that post-college, I should say, learning behind you, I was wondering if you might be able to provide any insight for our students about strategies or tactics that they might use to help them to continue to grow professionally. And that could be just resources or mindsets or practices, just anything and anything at all that you think might be useful to them in developing the habits and the skill sets and the determination for continued learning throughout their careers. And Dixon, sorry.
No, that's all right.
I assume you have thoughts on that, right?
I have a couple things written down. Just strategies to stay updated. I'm gonna come at this from a very kind of niche, just in the banking industry or working for the credit union. A lot of the things that come to my email or that I come across are just newsletters and from our corporate credit union, from NCUA, our governing body, just monthly newsletters that are just, here's the latest in our industry. Here's what we see in trends. Here's what we're seeing from kind of a more broad point of view, and then kind of applying that and seeing how maybe that will affect us from that point. Another thing just I wrote down is different podcasts. The one that I come across as our only kind of data or technical person at Red Wing Credit Union, I have been asked to kind of be a subject matter expert in AI, and that's kind of a big undertaking for a small institution. But the one thing the AI Daily Brief is like a 6, 7, 8 minute podcast that just talks about just the latest in AI development kind of going on in the world. And so just those little newsletters, those little less than 10-minute things that you can read, listen to every day, just to keep up with what's going on, because as we mentioned before, it's changing, and it's changing fast.
Right. Did you say AI Daily Brief? Is that the name of the podcast?
AI Daily Brief. It was one that was recommended to me, and I've been listening to it for every episode for the last couple months now since I heard about it. So.
Okay. All right. Terrific. Thank you. Yeah. Sean.
Yeah, I think I've gone similar routes as Dixon across the board. I think one thing that's a little bit different about me is I've done a lot of my own research across the board. Don't tell the professors there at St. Mary's. I didn't read a whole heck of a lot while I was in school. But one thing that we've established as an organization is a book club. We've gone through about 4 or 5 different books. We've been focusing on the Toyota process. So Lean Six Sigma, all that sort of fun stuff. Things like control charts, KPIs, truly what I would understand as, for lack of a better term, the scientific method. PDCA process, plan, do, check, act. Change one variable, what happens to all your outputs? If you would impact one of your inputs, what do you expect to happen? All that sort of stuff. So I think from a ever growing and ever learning process, I've taken a step away and learned from other avenues that I arguably haven't in the past, but also I've seeked out mentorship. I've been very fortunate in my career thus far to report to some people who, I'm going to be honest, I should not be reporting to, and I take advantage of it to the point where I'm having my one-on-ones at 9 o'clock at night and being able to learn from them outside of business hours to fully understand what the heck we're doing and how we're going to get there. So little things like that.
Are these initiatives you're describing, are these within the culture of Ashley? Are these like Ashley company practices?
Yeah, they most definitely are. They most definitely are. One of our core and growth values is dirty fingernail, which I think everybody understands the main premise, but it's work your butt off. And one of those things that comes along with that is that mentorship. And honestly, that's been the biggest piece for me.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Yeah, I think being within the right organization is probably one of the least undervalued determinants, I think, in what opportunities people are going to have for continued learning. Some organizations value it more than others. That's just the way it is. Okay, John. Mr. Heim?
Yeah. So I guess I'm going to say something that's different just so I don't echo it. I mean, I think those are both, you have to consume things very quickly. So Dixon's saying things 10 minutes or less, right? And think of it, whatever, time period you really want to, but you have to be able to consume things in a short amount of time because you're just going to end up not having that much time left in your day. But I think another piece that I use just because I'm interested in it is this, like the stock market, and not individual stocks. I go off of industry trends because I know, today I work at IBM. Tomorrow I could work in an entirely different industry. It doesn't necessarily matter. I like to keep up to date, using industry trends across the stock market. It's just something I like to do. I find it interesting. And I think it's a good way to keep up with what's happening around the world, and then you can do your more detailed learning off of that. But I just thought that's something a little bit different than I think what might be said, and it's fun. I mean, keep it fun. Learning has to be, otherwise you're just gonna burn out and not have any fun doing it anymore. So
right.
Yep.
And plus you could pick up some stock tips for Kirsten, right?
No, I'm going to stay out of all of that just for legal sake, but yeah.
Okay, thanks for that, John. Kirsten.
Yeah. So I mean, the big thing with our industry too is obviously the economy. So I mean, every morning checking online to see different things that are going on, different changes. Obviously, there's a lot of changes that happen, whether it's regard to different tax planning, estate planning, investing. Obviously, stocks is kind of the big one there too. And so we obviously use a lot of different seminars that are going on, just taking time to join those with, updated laws and helping, explain, the Secure Act 2.0, different things like that. Continuing education, that's big as well. Our broker dealer puts on like a national conference every year, where it's like 4 days, you can kind of go and learn. So just being open to finding different ways to kind of just learn as much as, or as cliche as that can be. And then, just staying up to date on what's going on in the world.
That's great. You brought up something that can be really helpful to, depending on the job and the professions that you have, and that is the idea of formal continuing professional education, CPE hours and credits. Stephen, I was a CPA also, and so I remember, as part of my work back in the day, I'd always get like a week or so to go attend, seminars and CPE workshops because it was required, at the time. I'm no longer active anymore, so I don't do that. But that's a good opportunity too, you students. There are professions out there that that require a certification or some kind of I don't know what a stamp of approval, if you will, and in order to maintain those certifications, like Kirsten is a certified financial planner, okay, and Stephen Swenson mentioned being a certified public accountant. Okay, in order to maintain those statuses, you have to have continuing professional education, certain number of hours every year, and those can present great opportunities to just go out and explore different things. They can be tangentially related to what it is that you do. They can be directly related, but those represent wonderful opportunities. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, Stephen.
Well, yeah, and it's a great segue for what you were talking about, and I had on my list conferences. So, place yourself trying to, I guess I would say networking, really important, and finding, as I know, just the together I have with Michael over, a pizza and some drinks. I learned so much from him. You know what I mean? Just in those opportunities. And so don't underestimate the value. Sorry, I had a call coming in. Don't underestimate the value of networking. Opportunities come from areas that you least expect, right? And also conferences. When you're at conferences, make sure to make connections with people, right? That will be valuable to you later on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow, somebody's calling me here. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry about that. Sorry about that distracted response. Maybe Steve could do a better job than I did on that.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Stephen. Steve.
Yep.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add, we talked about networking. I will be honest with you, my career has developed because of the network of the peers that I have been associated with. The information I can get from others in my same position who are probably seeing the same problems, and how do you learn from that? The other piece, as I'm looking at it from a student's perspective, is find a mentor, find someone in your business, someone in your organization that has been there and has followed the path already, and have them mentor you. One of the best things we can do, and I know many of you probably here have done it, is to be a mentor to someone who's up and coming, and giving them real life experiences and telling them the story of the failures you had and how you learned from those failures and the successes, and how between the two of them you humble yourself to the middle and you continue to advance on. I would say those would be the two things I've experienced from a success factor: is create a network of peers and find a mentor within your field and within your business.
That's great insight. That's not a source that usually comes up, but that's very, very valuable. Thank you for that. Okay, it looks like we only have but a few minutes, so if you don't mind, I'd kind of like to do just one other question that some of you may not even really have anything to add with the question, but I think it would be worth discussing anyway for some of the folks that might be out there, and that is around people that have already been in a profession. Let's say that you're working at a corporation in the world of finance, or you're working for a small CPA firm doing tax returns or things like that, and you are interested in transitioning yourself after you're 10, 15 years into this by now, and you're really interested in getting more into the business intelligence, the AI side of the world. And again, you might not have anything to provide for this question, and that's fine. But just some of you may have had some unique perspectives of folks that you're aware of or work with, or perhaps yourself have kind of made the transition after a number of years from a more traditional spot in the world of accounting, finance, etc., more to the BI side. And so I was just wondering if you do have any insight to that, any tips, I guess is what I'm asking for, tips for anyone that might be, wanting to find themselves more on the intelligence side of things. And this can be real quick. We only got four minutes, so these could just be bullet points if you want, just two, or I got nothing past, that's fine too. So, okay, so Dixon, if you please take us home.
Yeah, I think I've been in the same role. I had an internship this summer after I graduated, and then started at the credit union that September, and they've been both in very similar roles. So I wouldn't say switching from kind of a traditional finance role to a business intelligence role, but I think we kind of touched on it as that mentorship aspect of it is find someone that's done it, learn from them, whether it's a big organization, you're going to might be have multiple people that have done it, or a smaller organization, and you can reach out to the network that industry provides or that company has. And I'm sure someone has contacts. When I first started, I was the only data analyst. I still am. And so my boss said, like, hey, I'm going to put you in contact with these data analysts and these CEOs from these 3 credit unions that I'm close with, and learn from them. And so definitely spent time chatting with them pretty much monthly for the last few years about just all this stuff, what's changing, what's new, what do you do for this, that type of thing. So
Okay, yeah, perfect. Thank you. Sean?
Yeah, Dixon, I think that was a very good way of saying it. I'm going to summarize in my own words, eerily similar, but I think it's a level of openness, right? It's always going to be changing. As long as you're wanting to do it, you want to take that leap and into that step, being open to those new concepts is going to be the most crucial part. I mean, the elephant in the room whenever AI gets brought up or anything regarding technology or intelligence is my job going to be here tomorrow? When in real practices, at least I can speak from my experience, business doesn't really work that way. If you're a good person, the company's not going to get rid of you, right? They're going to find you something else to do, change up your day to day, something along those lines, whatever it looks like. So I think that openness, get all the scared thoughts out of your head and start adapting. It's the way the world's going to go. And being acceptive of that change, I think is important.
Excellent. Thank you, Sean. John, hi.
Yeah, I won't echo for the sake of time, but the one other piece I want to say is take all of those challenges, pain points, everything that you've faced as, whatever, enter finance role, right? And understand that those are going to be your biggest value, right? Because you understand the business. This goes right back to, I think, the first question of just being a translator. No one can translate to that side of the business better than you, right? That's your ability. But take those pain points, take those challenges, and kind of flip it, right? And give it to the technical team, give it to your peers now, and understand and help them understand this is the pain points, these are the challenges I face. What can we do to fix these, right? And that's kind of where you begin to learn. You see the solutions being implemented for literally the challenges you faced, in your prior role. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Kirsten.
Don't really have too much. The only thing I'll say, I went from corporate finance at IBM to more the personal finance side, and just with the transition in general, don't be scared of kind of what's coming. And if you're, young and in college, just starting out, take the risk and see how it works.
Yeah, that's that's it, isn't it? Just as they used to Nike used to say, just do it, right? Excuse me, I'm sorry, folks. Stephen.
I'm gonna have to close it off right here. I'm sorry for the other panelists that don't get to speak. I'm sure you had great words. We heard all these words repeated after each person, but so I just want to say thank you all for joining today and for being a part and engaging for this session. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to us, and it helps us improve and tailor our future content to better meet our needs. Please take a moment to fill out a survey that will be shown right after this session ends, that is taken on Zoom. It won't take long, and your insights will make a big difference for future events. And we appreciate your time and look forward to connecting with you in the future. Have a great wonderful rest of your night, and thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate this so much. It's invaluable. I can't tell you how much this, how your generosity helps them.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Glad to help.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Bye.